and fiscal expansion in major economies, in some major economies. Growth for 2026, respectively. In other words, our ministry says 3% growth in 2026 for Botswana. The subdued performance is mainly due to continuing weak diamond market, as you know, subdued global growth, and the potential adverse effects of the US tariffs. Now, if I talk about the inflation developments, allow me to talk about the inflation developments. Headline inflation increased significantly from 1.4% in August this year to 3.7% in September 2025, which means that inflation has reverted to the medium-term objective range of 3 to 6%. Albeit the rise in inflation was mainly due to the increase in domestic fuel prices effected on 15th of September 2025, which increased headline inflation by 0.93 percentage points. The MPC forecasts inflation to increase in the medium term from an average of 2.7% in 2025 to 5.9% in 2026. Similar to the story we told in August when we met. There are, however, risks to this inflation outlook, ladies and gentlemen. For example, the potential cost push pressures and second round effects stemming from the increase in water and electricity tariffs for businesses, as well as the increase in domestic fuel prices. On the other hand, the inflation outcome may be lower if domestic and global economic activity remains subdued, fiscal space remains tight, or if international commodity prices fall. What am I saying? I'm saying there could be cost push pressures stemming from increase in water and electricity tariffs and increase in price for fuel, but that will be tempered by the lower domestic and global economic activity if the fiscal space remains tight. The inflation outcomes could also be affected by possible changes in administered prices, not factored in the current projection. As background to the policy decision, I wish to highlight that the economy is expected to continue to operate below full capacity in the short to medium term and not generate demand-driven inflationary pressures, something again which will temper inflation growth. Therefore, although projected to go above 6% in the short term, inflation is expected to be within the objective range in the medium term. This suggests maintenance of a broadly accommodative monetary policy stance that would support economic activity, especially implementation of economic transformation initiatives as indicated in the BETP and NDP 12. This is fundamentally the stance of the MPC. However, the MPC saw reasons to adjust the monetary policy rate to reinforce policy transmission, particularly in relation to the monetary operation tools and distribution of market liquidity. Secondly, parameters undertaken in July 2025, which was intended to preserve the official foreign exchange reserve and which has worked, as well as signal that intend to support external balance. Let me clarify. Listen very carefully. This increase is not monetary policy tightening, but a recalibration to amplify the impact of the related liquidity support measures towards enabling market and balanced distribution of liquidity, as well as to support the pooler exchange rate and preservation of foreign exchange reserves and safeguarding external balance or achieving external balance. So let me be specific. Therefore, the committee has decided as follows. The committee has decided to increase the monetary policy rate from the MPC has decided to increase the monetary policy rate by 160 basis points from 1.9% to 3.5%. Secondly, this will mean that the 7-day Bank of Botswana certificates, auctions, repos, and reverse repos will be conducted at the monetary policy rate of 3.5%. Thirdly, the committee has decided to increase further. The committee has decided to increase the repo maturity further from up to 1 month. From up to 1 month, as you would recall in August, to 3 months to ensure adequate short-term liquidity and to reduce rollover risk and to foster stability in money market conditions. Fourth, the committee has decided to increase the standing deposit facility rate to 2.5%, which is 100 basis points below the monetary policy rate. Committee has increased the standing credit facility rate to 4.5%, 100 basis points above the monetary policy rate, just shifting the interest rate corridor a bit upwards. And lastly, the committee has decided to reduce the credit facility rate to 6.5%, which is 300 basis points above the monetary policy rate, to reduce precautionary holding of liquidity and help foster a more active and efficient interbank market. So those are the specific 5 decisions of the committee. Again, let me be categoric on the issue of PLRs. Commercial banks are directed not to increase their current PLRs to ensure that the adjustment supports this adjustment that we are making, which is just a technical adjustment, that it supports monetary policy transmission without increasing the cost of credit. So the increase we are making has got nothing to do with the cost of credit. It won't affect the cost of credit. This is the point I'm making here. The bank will continue to monitor developments closely and implement appropriate policy actions consistent with its mandate to maintain price stability and safeguard financial system stability. Our mandate, dear colleagues, is price stability. Maintain it without fear or favor and safeguard financial stability. As a related issue, let me also emphasize that the effectiveness of policy transmission, in other words, impact on economic activity, is also influenced significantly by the extent of use of the banking system and the financial sector generally. Thus, access to financial services and cost of banking and financial services are important for policy transmission. In this regard, the bank continuously monitors the extent and level of banking charges and fees and their impact on access and use of banking services to promote economic activity, welfare, and traction of economic transformation initiatives. We are also cognizant of the fact that financial literacy is important, and therefore there will be continuous financial education, as we do for Botswana and other residents of this country, to be elite and educated on how they use the banking system and the banking platforms. I think I'll stop here, Director of Saramun. Thank you very much. That is the English version of the statement. Now I'll go to the vernacular. The vernacular, let me alert you, is will be a little bit summarized. A little bit summarized because I'm banking on Borem Gunu, the good Setswana. To translate it properly, this English version. So, Chai, you can give me I can open it here if I can. Yeah, I'm here on. But it's a statement as a monetary policy committee. Is a buisa ka sekgowa kana ka sejatlhapi. Jaanong ke tla leka go se buisa ka Setswana mme ka boripana. Komiti ya Banka ya Botswana e laolang merokotso ya kadimo ya madi